Quiet Riot with Quiet Riot 2, 9 tracks for 42 minutes. The second studio album from the US 4-piece, released December 1978 by CBS Sony, and was a Japan-only release. Produced by Warren Entner and Lee DiCarlo, this album has a cover of Small Faces' Afterglow. Saw the opening track, Slick Black Cadillac, be re-recorded for the next album, Metal Health. And while Rudy Sarzo is pictured and credited on this release, it was actually recorded with Kelly Garney still on bass and backing vocals, and this was the last album also with Randy Rhoads before he left to join Ozzy Osbourne. Nikki?
Short, sharp, and to the point. That's what I wrote, so I have to read it. Not a bad album, but totally did not excite me. It is beige.
Okay.
Back to beige.
Yeah, nah. The
Not
best...
brown?
No, we moved on.
It's a respect thing, Andrew. I'm not calling anything brown anymore, it's beige. The best song for me was actually the opener, Slick Back Cadillac.
Yeah.
Eye for an Eye was okay. 5 out of 10.
Okay. I reckon you like this one, Brendan.
I'd never owned this album, so I was only familiar with a couple of tracks. Always had a soft spot for Quiet Riot because they were one of those transition bands for me that started getting me in the heavy stuff because of Come On Feel the Noise on Throbbin' 84, a compilation album I had all those years ago. As a result, I think I had a recorded tape of Metal Health from my cousin, and so I've always loved Quiet Riot since. Kevin DeBrow, and his voice is a bit polarising to some. I love his voice. I think it's great.
Okay,
Randy Rhoads' genius, clearly on display on this album, and you can see why he was in such demand as a guitarist at the time. It was out of control. There's some really good infectious rock. I think sonically it's weak.
It doesn't stand up.
The mix is god-awful. Probably just a victim of circumstance. This was like only released in Japan or something initially.
And this and the one before were Japan only released.
Yeah, really strange. But it was certainly setting the scene for the whole glam movement that came after that I love. It rocks. There's still the cheesy stuff on there, but it's a long way from perfect. I gave it 7.5 out of 10. The highlights were Slick Back Black Cadillac, Killer Girls, and Face to Face.
Okay. Now, this album was relatively popular in the request side of things, but I wonder how much attention would have been paid to this album today, especially if it wasn't for Randy Rhoads being on it.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think that without him being on this album, this would be swept completely under the fucking radar.
What almost was.
Yeah, I know. But when we put the post out, saying what do you want to do, this is one of the ones that was hotly nominated, and it's sort of like. But I think that's purely because of Randy Rhoads. It can't be on the album itself, as we're going to find out. Now, production's a bit rough and raw. It suits the vibe, though, but the dating is there for sure. The old school reverb is present to give it a relatively big sound, but overall the tone is too thin on this one. Laid well enough, pretty even presentation, but not nearly enough bottom end to fill out the sound properly. Randy stands out when he is left off the leash. Like, damn, he was brilliant. However, I can also see why he left to join Ozzy after this release. Overall, this is a bit loose in the performance and sound. It's not an overly bad thing, as it was their style, but it does come off as sloppy at times, though, which put me off. And the writing overall is a bit clunky. It feels a bit thrown together on this one. I can see why it was a Japan-only release, and also why it hasn't been reissued again since. There's a reason why that happened. Starts out strong, but then dips away and becomes pretty generic pretty quickly for me. It might be sacrilege to some, but this is how I feel listening to it. It doesn't make me want to go through repeat listens at all. I actually struggle to go back to it for a second listen. I just found myself really tuning out after the first 2 or 3 songs. It just, after that, I was like, okay, cool. I did tune in, though, when Randy was playing. And that was when my focus got brought back onto it. Another one that isn't terrible, but it just simply doesn't do a lot for me. Not something I'd be super keen to add to my collection either. And again, like I said a few times, I wonder how much hype is over this, just simply because of Randy and the tragedy that was to come later on. It's simple, generic, not overly well produced, and has aged pretty badly overall. One for the hardcore Randy Rhoads fans out there only, because he is a single shining light on this. No one else performs badly, but they don't step up either. That's the problem with it. There's just nothing new in this one at all. And I know that it came before the whole glam movement, but even for that it was pedestrian by comparison to what's coming later on. I gave it a 4 out of 10. Slick Black Cadillac, You Drive Me Crazy, and the guitar work of Randy Rhoads when he gets let loose. Those are my standouts. So, apart from that, that's our thoughts. Check it out and give us yours.